chapter Reportback from the International People's Tribunal, The Right to Resist, the Palestinian People versus the Zionist Occupation and the US Government. Um, I'm so glad you all could join us to hear about our experience traveling to and witnessing the International People's Tribunal. And we have many people here on Zoom joining us, as well as watch parties all across the country. Would love for folks to introduce themselves in the chat, share where you're calling in from. If you're a watch party, share how many people are watching with you, where you're gathering from. Introduce yourselves. Um, and I want to begin by introducing ILPS. We're the International League of People's Struggle, which is a global formation of people's organizations and movements that strives to realize the unity, cooperation, and coordination of anti-imperialist and democratic struggles around the world. With over 350 member organizations across 40 countries, ILPS is the largest formation of its kind. The ILPS globally was one of the conveners of the Right to Resist, the Palestinian people versus the Zionist occupation and the US government. The International People's Tribunal on the US-backed Zionist occupation's war of forced starvation and ecocide in Palestine was held in Barcelona on November 22nd and 23rd. And it found the US government and Zionist entity Israel guilty of genocide, ecocide, and forced starvation. We will hear a lot more about this ruling, about what an International People's Tribunal is, and how we can really take action to amplify this ruling to continue to fight for the Palestinian people's right to resist. And we are also offering this webinar as a contribution to the Week of Solidarity for Shukri Abubakar and Ghassan Alashi, who are both members of the Holy Land Foundation. The Holy Land Five was a group of Palestinian men who were wrongfully convicted and imprisoned in May of 2009. They all founded and led the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development, which was once the largest Muslim charity in the US. The Holy Land Foundation housed, fed, clothed, and provided medical support for orphans and other vulnerable communities in Palestine, within the US and other parts of the world. They were persecuted in the post 9/11 targeting of Arabs and Muslims, and the Holy Land Foundation was shut down in December of 2001 as a result of Zionist pressure and the war on terror. They were convicted of false material support on terrorism charges, which was used to end the Holy Land Foundation's incredibly important humanitarian aid to Palestinian people under Israeli occupation. Shukri and Ghassan still remain incarcerated in Beaumont, Texas, and have been for the past 17 years. We're participating in this week of solidarity to continue to call for their release, to remember them and their work, how they have contributed to the movement for the Palestinian people, and how the persecution of them is really connected to the International People's Tribunal. We can see the IPT not as an intervention into a new genocide, but as an intervention into this very long history of genocide, expulsion, and repression of the Palestinian people and their struggle for justice. The Holy Land Five are an incredible part of this history of people who offered humanitarian aid and incredibly important services to people in Palestine to try and fight this very genocide and forced starvation that the IPT found, that IPT discussed and witnessed testimony to. So we really want to center and honor Shukri and Ghassan, and especially today is actually Shukri's birthday. So we wanted to honor him, especially today. We can maybe end our call with some specific calls to wish him a happy birthday and call to free Shukri Abubakar and Ghassan Alashi. Our watch parties maybe can record videos for them as we continue to fight for the right for the Palestinian people to resist, to organize in their communities, to fight the forced starvation, genocide, and ecocide of the Palestinian people and land. Today, we will hear about the International People's Tribunal, and we will hear directly from the tribunal itself. We will have clips of the witness testimonies to show, and as well as a reading of a short piece of the verdict. We will watch a short cultural offering that was actually offered during the IPT itself, and then we'll have a panel discussing the with hearing reflections from members of the delegation who were able to travel to the IPT following the cultural. And then for those joining from a watch party, we hope you all can discuss together, share your reflections, but the formal call will end after that panel.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I see several watch parties, which is very exciting. Um, my name is Anna, and I organize with Resist US Led War Seattle, which is a member organization of the International League of People's Struggle. And I was fortunate enough to attend, along with the ILPS US delegation, to the International People's Tribunal. If we can go to the next slide. I just want to open us up by sharing a little bit about what people's tribunals are. And I think in this case, it's particularly important to also ground in the context of what has been happening in Palestine over the last 2 years and then many decades before that as well. Um, so just to sort of ground in some of the more recent developments that really, um, contextualize the People's Tribunal. Um, in October of 2025, we saw a ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian people and their resistance. However, what we've actually seen in practice is that Israel has violated this quote unquote ceasefire almost daily. More than 500 Palestinians have been killed since the start of this ceasefire through Israeli airstrikes, through continued blocking of aid into Gaza. The conditions are really horrific and continue to be. Um, Even just this past Saturday, there were at least 29 Palestinians who were killed from an Israeli airstrike on a hospital. So we're continuing to see really the ongoing horrific conditions on the ground in Palestine at the hands of the Zionist entity and the governments that back it, including the US, through the military support, through the giving of weapons to Israel that are being used on the Palestinian people. Um, we're also just seeing, right, folks may have seen Trump's establishment of the Board of Peace, which he is saying will be this board that will come in and help to rebuild Gaza. But I think that particularly we can see how ironic this is given Trump's recent rename to the Department of Defense to be the Department of War, right? His presidency has not been marked with peace, and we know he has no intention of really rebuilding Gaza for Palestinians. But he's been very blatant about his want to extract more resources to create real estate holdings in the region. So we're really seeing this move by the US imperialists as one to continually secure their interests in the region. And it's in this context that we really see the conditions that are giving rise to this need for justice. Um, so international people's tribunals are a tool of the people's movement. They're a quasi-judicial forum, meaning that they're a legal forum, but they're also a political forum. And really, IPTs are convened where there has been a lack of law in place, a lack of political will, or a lack of forum for justice for the people's movement. So their role is to create law, to push forward that political will, and to create a forum for testimonies, for witness statements, for really a venue to discuss violations to international humanitarian law. Um, and to really consolidate the outrage that we've all been feeling as we watch this genocide happening in real time, right, over social media, in the news, into a venue to push forward towards justice. I think it's particularly important to point out the name of this People's Tribunal is the right to resist, because this tribunal is not only uplifting the call to end the genocide, but really uplifting the right that is enshrined under international humanitarian law for the Palestinian people to resist oppression, resist colonization by the Zionist entity. So we were able to hear the testimony to support their right for justice. Particularly to this People's Tribunal, there were 241 organizations from 53 countries that endorsed this tribunal. There was over 100 attendees, several of which are on today. And the tribunal itself was formed of 7 jurors with experience in international humanitarian law. Uh, and 13 witnesses brought their stories alongside 3 expert testimonies. And all of this is supported as well by scientific and technical data, documentary evidence, including reports, photographs, satellite images that you're gonna see today. Some of the direct testimony that was shared, with the goal that these verdicts can actually be used to push forward in other international venues, including the UN General Assembly, the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court. But at the end of the day, this is really the beginning and a continuation of the Palestinian people's struggle for justice. And so this ruling that we'll talk about today is just one piece of advancing justice for the Palestinian people through the mass movement with the Palestinian people at the core and the solidarity movement standing with them. So we're going to go now into actually hearing some of the direct witness and testimonies, and I'm going to pass it over to Bing to introduce them.
Hello, can you see me and hear me? Yes. Okay. Hello, I'm Bing. I'm with FFPS LA, Friends of the Filipino People in Struggle, Los Angeles. As someone who first got involved in community activism after October 7th, it was an honor to attend the IPT in Spain on behalf of not only my own org, but as a part of the larger alliance that our org is a part of, ILPS. Regional formations like ILPS SoCal allow us to take up fights bigger than what we can accomplish as a single org. An example being a recent caravan and protest at the Adelanto Detention Center that we mobilized to on International Migrants Day. So the IPT itself included 2 full days of testimony from teachers, lawyers, doctors, activists, farmers, all sharing on the wide range of the war crimes being perpetrated by the US and the Israeli occupation government. In total, we had about 25 pages of very harrowing, illuminating transcripts. And it's too much to get into in the scope of the call. So what we wanted to do in sharing these specific testimonies was really highlight the specific charges of genocide and ecocide. So moving to the first clip, it is from Dr. Omar Nashabi, who is a human rights and criminal justice analyst. He has a PhD in human services in criminal justice, and he is a member of the UN expert group on gender justice and the law. And what he is sharing is satellite imagery and analysis on the scale of Israel's bombing campaign. If you want to go ahead and play the clip.
Yeah, just to note for folks listening in that the audio, unfortunately, is the volume is kind of low, so you might need to turn up your speakers as loud as you can. I do apologize.
Exhibit 3, this is a Zaytun neighborhood in 2025. So this is the image on the first image on the left is from 18/3/2025. The one on the right is from 2025 in September. This is a Zaytun neighborhood. It is one of the oldest and largest neighborhoods in Gaza City. Its name in Arabic translates to the quarter of olive trees, a reflection of its history, which included olive groves. You can see on the picture on the right, there's not one olive tree or one green space left on the right hand. So you can see the scale of the destruction of vegetation and groves and trees and anything that's green. Now we'll move to Exhibit 5, please. Exhibit 5 is Beit Hanun. This is Beit Hanun, located at the northeast of Gaza Strip. The destruction is also massive, and the images show no sign of life, no trees, no vegetation, nothing is left. The Israeli army destroyed everything, every single building of structure, any structure there, and every tree and green space. The environmental damage is long-term and severe, as the information published by the United Nations Environment Programme report about environmental impact of the conflict in the Gaza Strip, published on September 23rd, shows. The UNEP relied on scientific methodology and consolidated evidence and reported long-term and severe environmental damage in Gaza. What is meant by that? Much of Gaza's vegetation has been destroyed. Since 2023, the enclave of Gaza lost 97% of its tree crops, 95% of its shrubland, and 82% of its annual crops. Food production at scale is not possible. That comes as over 500,000 people in Gaza and more are facing famine conditions according to the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, IPC, which is the data from IPC is used by the United Nations to actually assert if there's famine or not. So this is a kind of a methodological, scientific way to actually measure that so that it's undeniable scientifically, with about 1 million other people other than the 500,000 others in food emergency. Approximately 61 million tons of rubble have been produced by the destruction. The debris volume is staggeringly large. About 15% of that debris may be contaminated with asbestos, heavy metals, or industrial waste components. Soil structure has been severely altered. Compactions by military vehicles has reduced the soil's ability to absorb water, reducing groundwater recharge and increasing risks of flooding. Please show Exhibit 1, Beit Lahia. This is Exhibit 1, yes, Beit Lahia. Please show Exhibit 2, the Tufah neighborhood. And you can see the scale of the destruction and all these buildings that have been destroyed. You see they reduced to rubble. And that rubble causes additional pollution and problems for the environment. All 5 in addition to that, all 5 wastewater treatment plants in Gaza have been shut down, leading to sewage leaking into the soil, coastal waters, and even potentially into freshwater aquifers. Munitions containing heavy metals and toxic chemicals have contaminated soil and water, creating long-term health risks. Solid waste infrastructure is devastated. 5 out of the 6 facilities.
Yeah, so sorry, let's turn down our volumes in our watch parties. After the clip, my bad. Let me give y'all some time. But Dr. Nashabi, right, talks about 97% of trees and farmland being destroyed, agriculture being completely wiped out. One of the testimonies we heard talked about farmers who returned to their greenhouses after a bombing and replanted. And once green started to show again, Israel once again bombed the greenhouses, showing that this bombing isn't just indiscriminate, but it is a strategic targeting of civilian infrastructure and supply lines. Even what he shared about all 5 wastewater plants in Gaza being destroyed, right? This is nothing new. It's part of a decades-long ethnic cleansing strategy, and we're just seeing the escalation of that. To go a little bit more into it, I'm going to share the next clip from a fisher folk who chose to remain anonymous but did share audio, talking about, again, that strategic targeting of industry that's necessary for the livelihood and the survival of Palestinians. And I guess let's turn our audios up again.
Yeah, unfortunately for this one, when we test ran it, the audio was not really coming through, just so you know. But there are subtitles, so please get ready for those. Sorry, just pausing because there is a suggestion in the chat to read the captions aloud. So just wondering if one of our presenters would like to do that or.
Oh, yes, so sorry. I'll read the remaining captions aloud, and then I'll do a quick recap of the sharing. But if you could press play, please. There's a deliberate strategy to create famine. The occupation closes crossings, blocks the entry of food supplies. This very essential sector is still paralyzed till now. The Israelis are targeting any fishermen and sometimes even people who are mere swimmers. And these are war crimes. And this is against the Fourth Geneva Code. Many fishermen have lost their homes and their children, and many of them are living in tents inside the port of Rasa. Yeah, to quickly recap for people who weren't able to hear the first portion, yeah, it was a fisherman who was sharing about how in the first week after October 7th, uh, one of the only ports in Gaza was deliberately bombed. Over 700 fishing boats sunk. The entire fishing industry really wiped out. It's an important lifeline for many Palestinians, fishing being the second largest industry after agriculture. Um, we also, in talking about the pollution from the bombings, from the wiping out of wastewater treatment, how that also affects the fishing industry. Um, so we talked a little bit about the destruction of the land, the destruction of industry and sustenance. Wanted to move to one of the more, I think, emotionally difficult sharings of the IPT, which is from Musher Al-Farah. He's an activist who was on the ground and able to film the aftermath of some civilian bombings. And he shares about the deliberate targeting of civilians and the process of collective punishment being carried out by Israel. And hopefully the audio is a little nicer on this one.
But please do turn up your volumes. So it will still be on the lower side. So please do take a second to turn it up.
Yeah, so for here, I'm going to, I think, read off of the transcript as well. So in the audio of the clip itself, he's saying this is the scene of a bombing, destroying all the cars as well. That's my cousin's car, that's my neighbor's. The carnage is massive, unbelievable. Aziz as well, brother of Hatim, a pharmacist, a very fine man. He was in the neighborhood earlier. I cannot understand how blind the world is. Innocent people, innocent people. There's another body thrown from the top floor down. I can't believe the bravery of these people. People are going up to check up on more bodies, families, total families, two big families. This is a crime I'm witnessing now. Two beloved cousins, beautiful people, beautiful, beautiful people. Um, and then in the first video, he shared another dead victim. I don't know how many so far. The crimes that are happening are continuing every minute, every second, everywhere. Shame on the world for staying a blind eye. So now the prosecutor is asking about the systematic targeting of civilians and also asking if he saw any instances of collective punishment.
I can immediately, starting from the 9th of October,
Are folks able to hear this?
Khan Yunis, we started to see thousands and thousands of people coming from the north and the eastern province of Khan Yunis. Now we are used to the people of the eastern province immediately when the Israelis attack in 2014, 2008, 2009, 2012,
2021, whenever the Israelis attack, they are ordered immediately three towns, Khuza'a, Abasan, and I'm sorry, you have to remind me to go slow because and Abasan and Bani Israel immediately they moved to Khan Yunis. But this time, the scale was massive because tens of thousands, so all the squares of Khan Yunis, all the pavements were full of thousands and thousands of people from as far as Beit Hanun. I met people from a Najjar family, from Al-Kafharna family who walked in the street, and they came all the way from the very north. It was still warm, so men will sleep in the streets with help from locals, and women were taken to the houses and like what you call community centers, like diwans. But it was a massive scale of collective punishment of just denying large number of population of their right to a shelter, their right to a house. The other aspect of the collective punishment
Yes, and the clip cuts off, but he goes on to explain another aspect of collective punishment, which is the targeting of entire neighborhoods in order to attack one Hamas operative. He mentions two incidents where one in Block G in Khan Yunis, where they destroyed 52 houses for a single Hamas operative. They killed 67 people. And another example where 72 people were killed to target a single Hamas operative. And he asks, how can you kill an entire community to target one person? I wanted to close off with our last clip. We were having extra audio problems with this one. So I may have to read out again. But these are reflections from Mazem Kumseye, who is a scientist and the founder and director of the Palestine Museum of Natural History. And what he's sharing about is the material and psychological impacts of separating the Palestinian people from their land. I think to make things easier, I might just want to read out the last half of the video because it is a little rough to understand. I'm going to pull that up right now. And yeah, if you can start the video from about halfway, and I'll try to follow along. Yeah, there's another aspect that's less frequently discussed to the effects of the ecocide, which is a social and cultural aspect. We Palestinians are a part of the Fertile Crescent. Our ancestors were the ones who first developed agriculture, domesticated plants and animals, so we are intimately connected to the land. As the land is being destroyed and stripped away from us for the benefit of settlements, there's a huge psychological problem for the people here. Bethlehem has 3 refugee camps. Some of them tried to compensate for the loss of their lands by growing things with pots in their balconies and in their kitchen. But there's a huge psychological aspect to the loss of our land and loss of our ecology. My mother used to take us to the field to collect medicinal plants and to collect herbal plants and collect plants to eat in the fields. I cannot do that with my son. I can't do that. Our families can't do that anymore. It's gone. This has a huge impact, not merely the material aspects of it that I mentioned, but also the psychological aspect of it. Because as I said, as an agrarian society that is built on this connectivity to the land, I remember seeing fields when I was a child full of different colors of flowers. And some children have come to our Museum of Natural History and Botanical Garden don't have that memory. if they don't have those flowers, they have to see what we recreate for them, something in our botanical garden, and we have to re-educate them. But what the land of Palestine used to be before this genocide engulfed us both in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, but also the Galilee and Negev and other parts of Palestine. Yes. I wanted to share that to show the psychological aspect. It shows up in the separation from the land. It also shows up through forced starvation. It shows up through living in tents, being moved from refugee zone to refugee zone. The cruelty of the indiscriminate bombing as a terror tactic, that these psychological aspects are a daily reality for Palestinians. Something that also, as I close out, something that also really shone through from hearing these witness testimonies at the IPT, from a wide range of people, from teachers, from lawyers, doctors, farmers, was also in the hope in resistance that, still so steadfastly the Palestinian people are doing what they can to protect their sovereignty. I also attended the global ILPS 25th anniversary, and something was shared from the West Asia coordinator on Palestine. He said, "Here is our land, and here we will stay, and here we will fight." And I think with the framing of this event as right to resist, not only is it the Palestinians people's right to resist, it's also just, righteous, I think necessary. And from what I saw at the IPT, I think I'm also assured that the victory and freedom of the Palestinian people is a certainty. So on what to do with this information, these reflections, the scale of the genocide and ecocide being carried out, I'm going to pass back to Anna to share back some reflections and analysis that we have on the verdict.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bing, for taking us through some of the witness testimonies. I think it was just so striking to be in person, actually in the room. And I know today we had some struggles with the audio, but I think it's also really just inspiring to see the messages and the stories get out in any way that they can. This, was a tribunal that was convened in the midst of active and ongoing genocide and ecocide. And so for the witnesses that really came, it was really a testament to their strength and determination to share their stories. And that's a huge part of why we're here today. As we talked about at the beginning, these tribunals convene where there's not the political will for justice. And actually, what we've seen from our international institutions is not that they are failing, but that they're operating how they're intended to, which is to really stand behind the imperialist powers, stand behind these governments that are trying to extract resources and steal land. But what we're seeing in the face of that is incredible resistance and determination. I think also important to draw out was really the designation of ecocide that the Zionist entity is committing against the Palestinian people. What really stuck with me was that we can't talk about genocide without talking about the ecocide. Some of the witnesses shared that ecocide is really a genocide on future generations. And so as folks are really grappling with and hearing and internalizing the stories from the witnesses and the experts that shared them on the tribunal, I think reflecting too on the impacts of the relationship between the Palestinian people and their land is so crucial. I'm going to share, we can go to the next slide. I just want to share a little bit of the verdict that was drafted. So after many days of listening to these stories, the jurors actually deliberated and took the evidence in at face value, and drafted the what's the word I'm looking for? The verdict. And the whole thing is very powerful, and folks should definitely go read it and share it. But I wanted to pull out just a few paragraphs here for us to reflect on. So I'll read. After reviewing the totality of the evidence, the tribunal finds that the crimes committed against the Palestinian people are not isolated acts, nor are they the product of the fog of war. They are the result of deliberate policy executed over years and intensified into a genocidal and ecocidal campaign unprecedented in scale and severity. The tribunal is acutely aware that even the most comprehensive judgment cannot encompass the magnitude of what has been inflicted. As one witness said, they destroyed our history and memories. Everything our family built was erased. The tribunal also recognizes that truth itself has been a battlefield. Witnesses, journalists, and human rights organizations, those who documented the crimes adjudicated here, have been killed, censored, deported, or sanctioned. The very institutions whose reports were relied upon in these proceedings have been placed on sanctions list, a political act aimed not at legality but at erasing the documentation of atrocity. We reject such attempts at silencing. We cannot celebrate human rights while bombs continue to fall on Gaza. We cannot speak sincerely of the right to self-determination, even as Palestinians are denied the chance to chart their own destiny. And we cannot lay claim to universal values while watching Palestinian children die before they even have the chance to truly live. Palestine is a true test of our humanity, and our actions now would demonstrate to future generations whether or not we have abandoned it. And it is for this very reason that this judgment stands. Where others have stepped back, it steps forward. I think this piece of the verdict is really powerful because it does help us to understand that this ruling is not sort of in the way that our traditional court system works, where there's a ruling and then that's the end. That's what the verdict is. But really, this is a call to action. It's a call for us all to stand in solidarity with Palestine. It's a call to uplift the right of occupied people to resist their occupation. And it really is a call for us to step forward. I think, as we know, many of us have been watching for years now as this genocide has waged on in horrific ways. And the burden of watching that is also that we are now a part of the ongoing court of public opinion to really continually put the Zionist entity on trial, the US government, all of the governments that have backed the Zionist entity on trial, and to really stand for justice for Palestine. If we go to the next slide, there was one more quote that I would like to draw out. This one's actually from the closing statements from the lead prosecutor. He said, "The liberation of Palestine is the work of the Palestinians. The work of the rest of us is solidarity. The US intervention in Vietnam was ended by the struggle of the Vietnamese people and the solidarity of the people of the world. Apartheid was brought down by the struggle of the South African people and the solidarity of the people of the world." So I think this is really something that stood with many of us as we walked away from the People's Tribunal, was just to see the tangible solidarity from so many people's movements around the globe. And we'll talk about it more in our panel in a little bit. But particularly here, as many of us are in the US and are not Palestinians, it's really our responsibility to still stand in solidarity with Palestine. And in closing, we have this beautiful verdict that really helps to sum up all of the experiences, the witness statements, the testimonies from experts. But one theme throughout the whole of the tribunal was the Palestinian people really repeating again and again that we are the final verdict. The Palestinian people are the final verdict. And so it's really through their liberation movement, through their right to resist, through their steadfastness and continuing every single day to stand up in the face of atrocity for their land, for their right to return, for their right to recover the land and its history from this ecocide, so that future generations of Palestinians can really thrive. Um, yeah, the work today is really just beginning as we report back on this experience. And I hope that in listening to this today, everyone here also understands the responsibility to continue to propagate these stories and to share them, so that we can really utilize this People's Tribunal to the fullest extent as a tool of the people's movement, that is valuable because it has many, many, many people behind it. We're going to move into a couple other things now, but we will have a panel in a little bit. So we'll move to the next slide. I wanted to take a moment here in the middle as we've sort of seen the impact of the People's Tribunal, which was in part convened by the International League of People's Struggle, to also share another way to support this call for justice is to support the International League of People's Struggle Alliance as a space where international solidarity is really forged. So there's a few different ways you can support. If you are in an organization that is not yet in ILPS, we would love to have you join us. It's an incredible opportunity to be able to be in alliance with people all around the globe, and to strengthen our movements that way. You can also support us by donating to the ILPS US Venmo, which is on the screen. There's a QR code. It's also at ILPS-US. It takes a lot of grassroots support for us to be able to convene these venues, and to do the day-to-day work to really build the mass movement that can actually make material change. And so to support that work, we really do rely on the donations of time and money and materials of individuals. And lastly, you can, of course, continue to propagate the stories that you are hearing here today. There is another way that is very important in the Palestinian movement, along with many other national liberation movements, to call for justice, which is through the cultural work and cultural resistance of the Palestinian people. So we wanted to uplift as well. There was some really amazing music that was played throughout the People's Tribunal, and we do have a video to share with you all. We're also about halfway through our program today, so feel free to listen to this music, pull out your Venmo, support ILPS, take a little stretch break, go to the bathroom, and enjoy this beautiful cultural work as well. So we'll go to the next slide. And I believe it is also a little bit quiet, so if you'd like to turn up your sound now so you can fully appreciate it, please do. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful music. It was a very common occurrence in all of the breaks in between and throughout the uh, People's Tribunal that we were able to really witness the beautiful Palestinian music. So I hope everybody has returned. We're going to now actually go into a panel discussion to hear from a couple members of the ILPS US delegation to the uh, International People's Tribunal. So I will invite up our panelists. It's really, yeah, such an honor to get to introduce our speakers today. We will have Nida Abu Bakr, who is a longtime Palestinian activist and public speaker, and the daughter of political prisoner Shukri Abu Bakr. She was able to attend the IPT with us. And then also, Toby, welcome back.
Thank you.
Toby is one of the regional coordinators for the International League of People Struggles Seattle Tacoma, and was also part of the delegation. So yeah, welcome. Can everybody hear us okay? See us okay? Text going good? Amazing. Um, so I wanted to just start by really asking you all to share a little bit of your personal reflections about what it was like, what it meant to you to be at the International People's Tribunal itself. Maybe we can start with Nida.
Hey, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It was honestly such an honor. Being present at the IPT was deeply grounding and humbling. It showed me what international solidarity truly looks like in practice. People came from so many different places, yet we're united around a collective struggle for justice, and that collective energy is something we urgently need right now. Um, Hearing directly from witnesses throughout the tribunal made everything more real. It wasn't just behind our phone screen that we were watching, videos. It was actually in front of us. So these weren't distant reports or abstractions. We were listening to lived experiences. We've worked so long to make Palestine seen and heard, and the fact that people across the world were in one room recognizing this as a genocide, it deeply mattered to me, at least, and to all of us who were there. I personally had the honor of presenting testimony from someone in Gaza, someone who spoke not only about the genocide, but about the ecocide as well, the destruction of land, water, and life itself. And I consider them a political prisoner because the reality is Gaza is one large open air prison. So to carry their words into that space was a heavy responsibility, and it made the reality of this violence even more undeniable. I have always been committed to amplifying the voices of political prisoners, and I will always be a voice for Palestinian prisoners. So seeing the evidence laid out at the IPT, especially in the context of this current escalation, was a painful reminder that this is exactly what my father tried to prevent through the work of the HLF. So the tribunal affirmed for me that the struggle is not isolated, it's global, and it's being witnessed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nida. Really resonate with feeling the collective struggle for justice in this space. You want to add?
Yeah, I echo so many of your reflections. It was so incredible to see the international solidarity really present in the room. It was really moving to me to see that the International People's Tribunal really actually came out of our people's movements. It really showed the strength and decisiveness of our movements, and it isn't separate from those movements. It was really clear to me. It was organized by and put forward And the verdict itself doesn't exist outside of that container of the mass movements it came from. It came from 241 organizations that endorsed the IPT. It came from all of the organizations that were present in that room with us. It was especially moving to me to see how many organizations from the national democratic struggle in the Philippines were present in that room, who held an International People's Tribunal for the Philippines last year, or I guess 2 years ago at this point. And the Palestinian people were able to ask for support in holding this tribunal. And it was so moving to see how many organizations across the globe, and especially from the Philippines, really came together to stand in really decisive solidarity with the Palestinian people, to witness these testimonies and to act as prosecutors in this tribunal to call for justice, and not just to call for justice, but to uphold the right of resistance in the name of the tribunal. But weaved throughout all of the 2 days we were in Barcelona together, it was so moving to see not just the really horrific war crimes and devastating destruction of the people and land, but the people fighting back in the room with us and the people calling into the room who are continuing to uphold this, their right to their land, to their people, to the sea, to farm on that land, to fish in the sea. I think like Nida said too, so much, many of us have been witnessing through talking to people we love or through watching videos on social media, like the destruction of Gaza and the Palestinian people. And it was so moving to be able to bear witness together, to be in this container of people's struggles, to be with organizers from all over the world, from different struggles, not just people who are organizing for Palestine, but people who are organizing for democratic rights and for their own movements all over the world came together to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, to call for the Palestinian people's right to resist. And it was especially moving to me to see one of the clips that we saw showing the fishermen speaking about how not only have fishermen been targeted, but the actual infrastructure of attaining food from the land, from the water they live alongside is being destroyed. The farmers speaking about the destruction of their land and the contribution that Anna spoke about of ecocide alongside genocide, and how that is a contribution naming really explicitly not just the genocide of the Palestinian people, but the way the ecocide is an attack on the future of the Palestinian people, because we can understand how connected the Palestinian people are to their land. So an ecocide is really targeting this connection, and we can see how it actually shows us the depth of connection that Palestinian people have to their land, because it is their land and they're indigenous to this land. And it really, to me, there's such an incredibly important parallel between naming the ecocide what it is and calling for the right of resistance. So that was very moving to me, to be able to be present, to witness these things together. And just want to reiterate that the IPT was not just a platform that to uplift these voices. It uplifted these important voices, but it actually carries with it the strength and the weight of all of the different movements and struggles that were present in that room when we declare the Israeli occupation and the US government guilty of genocide, ecocide, and forced starvation.
Yeah. Thank you both for those reflections. I think hopefully it came through a little bit in some of the videos that folks saw today, as well as the reflections, just the strength of the Palestinian people's struggle for resistance and the solidarity that was so tangible and such an important aspect of holding an International People's Tribunal. It's, it's in the name of what this is. It's really the People's Tribunal. It's the people's justice. And I think right now we're really seeing ongoing attacks on and repressions of people's movements around the globe, certainly in Palestine. But even as folks have been drawing out, attacks from the US on Venezuelan fisher folk, ongoing terror tagging of people of different movements, from calling, Palestinians fighting for their land terrorists to even Donald Trump calling Alex Preddy and Renee Good terrorists for their witnessing and resistance to ICE here in the US. So I'm wondering if you could reflect and share a little bit on how we can understand the justness and interrelation of these struggles, and really what is our role in combating the repression of people's movements. Maybe pass to you to start this time.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think it feels very timely to understand what it means to uplift our right to resist is also a need to combat the repression of our people's movements and to combat really the destruction of these institutions. We can see that the right to resist is actually upheld under international humanitarian law. We can see that it is, and that the institutions that are supposed to uphold that are doing exactly as they are designed to do and failing to do so. So the International People's Tribunal steps up and steps in, and we as a people's movement have to defend the justness of our struggles. We have to reiterate and declare that we have a right to resist. And just as the International People's Tribunal comes out of our organizations and our work, our ability to combat that repression also comes out of our movements, the strength of our movements, and our connection to the people. In order to fight repression, in order to be able to stand together, we have to build a strong mass people's movement that can weather this repression. We have to organize, we have to defend our right to organize. We can see that in the case of the Holy Land Five. We have to defend the right to provide humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people and without being called terrorists. We have to defend the right to document ICE without being called terrorists. We can see another example recently of Chantal Anacoche, who is a Filipino who traveled from here in the US back home to the Philippines to visit her homeland, to be with people and to really understand and participate in the humanitarian aid work in the Philippines. And she was captured by the Philippines government during a bombing. And she has been labeled a terrorist. She's been deported back to the United States following being incarcerated and detained for a month, and her activism is also being terror tagged. The Israeli, the US, and the Philippines governments are all labeling activists and human rights advocates as terrorists to establish a culture of impunity for state forces to get away with these blatant crimes against the peoples and the people's organizations. We can see that in Trump labeling Renee Good and Alex Preddy as terrorists. We can see that in the labeling of the Holy Land Five as terrorists, and we can see that in Chantal Anacoche being labeled a terrorist. We need to continue to advocate and really uplift that our organizing is not terrorism, that we must build a stronger people's movement that can call for the end to aid to Israel, that can call for a people's arms embargo, that can organize our workplaces to stand in solidarity with Palestine, or to advocate that ICE cannot enter our workplaces, to get ICE out of our schools and our cities. We have to be able to organize strong people's movements to do all of that work, and we have to defend our ability to actually do so.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nita, I know you have a long history of fighting the repression of our people's movements, and your activism of uplifting also your father's designation. And yeah, would love to hear more about how you have also done that in your work.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I mean, everything that was just said is spot on. But I'd like to start with saying, to understand the justness of our struggles, we have to understand the ongoing chain reaction of repression. Palestine has been under occupation for over 70 years. What we're witnessing today, it didn't start on October 7th. It's the result of decades of displacement, siege, and collective punishment. My father has been in prison for almost 2 decades for his work with the Holy Land Foundation, whose mission was to deliver humanitarian aid, food, medical support, and relief to Palestinian children and families living under occupation. So, shutting down that work, criminalizing humanitarian aid, and imprisoning community leaders didn't stop violence. It facilitated what we're seeing now, and it made it easier for our oppressors to operate without accountability. So repression works by isolating us, putting leaders in prison, shutting down charities, and making people afraid to act. So their message has always been the same. If they silence enough people, they dismantle enough movements, then they move one step closer to winning their agenda. But history shows the opposite. Every time they repress us, it reveals the justness of our struggle even more clearly. So, how do we fight back? Simply, we unite. Whenever we see someone being repressed, it's important that we don't abandon them. And an example that I like to use, it's like being at a protest, right? Like when you see someone get stomped on by the cops, for example, you don't just look away. You pick them up, you grab them by the hand, you lift them up, and you march with them. You chant even louder, you stand firmer, and you don't let them crumble under the boots of the oppressor. That's what I'm trying to get at. We will not crumble under the boots of our oppressor. So silence isn't going to get us anywhere. Like they're trying so hard to silence us. Silencing ourselves, us being afraid, it's not going to get us anywhere. It only helps them get closer to winning. So our responsibility to each other and our future generations is to speak, to organize, and to stand together no matter the cost.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's, I think, really so powerful to reflect on the importance of speaking up in these times and really organizing on the ground alongside the Palestinian people, alongside all people fighting for their national liberation. I loved what you said, simply we unite, because it's so true, right? And I think really what we heard throughout the International People's Tribunal was the call to action, the call to not just sit silently, but to really take this verdict as, a very direct ask for each of us to stand up. So I would love to ask you both, how do you really see the next step of propagating the International People's Tribunal? Where are you really taking this in your work, in your campaigns? Yeah, what does this look like from here? Maybe we go back to Nida.
Yeah. I love this question because it's always like, okay, what's next, right? So like the verdict at the IPT, it wasn't symbolic. It truly is a call to action. It asks us what we're going to do with the truth now that it's been laid out so clearly. And here, taking it up means remembering that we truly carry Palestine's voice, that is the role of our movements globally. Without the movement, the struggle for Palestine, it doesn't survive. And that's exactly why there's such a coordinated effort to shut it down as a whole. They're trying to silence and shut our movement as a whole. So this moment requires us to move away from individuality and center Palestinian voices in Palestine or those locked away in diaspora. Um, so yeah, especially those who have endured the genocide. So we've been listening to the people who are living this reality, and we have to not speak over them or dilute their demands for comfort or legitimacy. This is not the time for us to be comfortable with the things that we're saying. So for me personally, taking up the verdict means continuing to amplify the voices of those who need it, like political prisoners, and acting on that responsibility in real ways. That includes events like writing letters of support, showing up consistently, and making it clear that their efforts and their names have not and will not be forgotten. So yeah, the verdict, it gives us clarity, and what we do with it, how we organize, how we protect one another, and how we stay rooted in collective struggle is what will determine the strength of this movement going forward. And we can't afford to lose that strength. So we can't afford to be afraid right now. I can't afford to be afraid. So now's the time for us to only get stronger. And like I mentioned earlier, to just unite hand in hand. And me personally, I'm just so grateful to have a community and an army behind my back. For example, this week of solidarity, this week of action has been so, like, I have been feeling so much gratitude knowing that I have support. I'm not organizing on my own, and this is what I've been working so hard towards. It felt like I've been doing this alone for so long, but now more than ever, I feel the support. And in general, it's like we're seeing everyone wake up to what's happening in Palestine. We're seeing the support now more than ever globally. Celebrities are speaking up. And that's what we're working towards. We're working towards more of that. Sorry, my son decides to join in only when I start speaking. But yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think the call to really be together and collectively understand our strength is really clear, and to uplift the Palestinian people's long struggle that is headed towards the liberation of Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I was moved by what you said about they're trying to silence us and isolate us. And to me, that really shows us exactly what the call to action is, what our response needs to be. And it's to build the broadest, largest, strongest solidarity movement for Palestine that we can. It's to really strengthen and popularize this verdict. It's to continue to grow the number of people that see the liberation of Palestine as connected to their own liberation. It's connecting Palestine back to our everyday struggles as much as we can, and continuing to really link national liberation struggles to all of our everyday fights here. I think that it's incredibly important for us to be upholding and defending the Palestinian people's right to resist. That is in the title of the International People's Tribunal, and I think it is integral to all of our solidarity work that we really uphold that the Palestinian people not only have the right to resist, but that their resistance will win, and that we have a duty to stand in solidarity. We have a duty to, like I said, link that to our everyday struggles. I see that in the struggles against ICE here. There's a really strong link, partially because the technologies and tactics of warfare that we are seeing in Minneapolis and in cities across the country are technologies that have been like tested and developed against Palestinian people, against people in Yemen and in Venezuela, in the Philippines, from the literal drone technologies that are then sold as like field tested to the tactics of terror tagging our movements and the tactics of repression against our people's movements. So there's so many links in the arms embargo work we can do, in waging divestment campaigns because of how linked our institutions are to these genocidal entities, to calling for our need to defend people's struggles, to defend our communities. It's really integral to all of our work to see our struggles as connected, to see the need to uplift national liberation struggles and the right of the Palestinian people to defend themselves. Because we see that when we stand up and fight, we're met with military violence. We see that in Palestine. We see that in the Philippines. We see that in Minneapolis. We see that in Venezuela. And so when we are met with military violence because we're standing up, that means we need to build a movement that can withstand that. We need to build a movement that is strong enough, that is united enough, that is together and coordinated so that we can continue to really fight back against the level of violence that we are facing, because we can continue to see how much it is escalating. And our struggle needs to strengthen alongside that, to grow, to broaden, to have more and more people see how interconnected we all are and how important it is to grow our people's movements.
Yeah. Wow. Um, I'm just it's just such a joy to really hear both of your reflections from the International People's Tribunal. And I think what I'm really taking away is the importance of the on-the-ground work every single day to continue to uplift the Palestinian people's right to return to their land, their right to resist until they're able to return. Just seeing the intersections between all of the campaigns that I know many folks on this call are waging in their different areas across the country and around the world, to understand how fighting against repression in any place around the world is contributing to the same goal of really freeing the people. And like you were saying, Toby, to really uplift for more and more people the connections of their own lives, of their own struggles to the struggle for liberation in Palestine too. I'm reminded of a quote from Palestinian freedom fighter Leila Khalid, where she says that the imperialists are global, so we must also be global. And I think this really was just so felt at the People's Tribunal, that so many people were really coming together to uplift the need to fight back against these interests that are trying to repress the people, that are trying to silence truth, that are trying to make more and more profits off of this genocide and ecocide. But really what we know is that there are so many more of us than there are of them. And that our task is every day to keep building the power to really resist. So we're sort of to the end of our panel and the end of our time on this webinar today. But I really want to, again, thank you to all of our contributors today. And thank you as well to the witnesses who are sharing their testimonies with us, even though they're not here to, at this moment, hear this. I think it really is such a immense undertaking to come in the midst of ongoing genocide of your people, to share what is happening. And so it's really, really a call for all of us to not let these stories end here, to not let these testimonies sort of fade, but to continue to prop them, to continue to share them and uplift them and uplift the immense struggle that is ongoing and will be victorious, because we know that the people, the people of Palestine have a right to resist. So yeah, this is one of many reportbacks, and there may be other reportbacks in your area. Folks can continue to follow the work of the International League of People's Struggle, can continue, maybe one of our tech people can help put the link into the chat for the International People's Tribunal website, where you can read the full verdict, as well as see other photos. There's some wonderful like trifolds that you can read with more information on the verdict. But yes, as a final call to everyone, let's really take this into the world, continue to prop and uplift the Palestinian people and be in strong solidarity, so that all of our movements can really advance.
Yeah. I was wondering if we could end this webinar with a really short call to wish Shukri, Nida's father, a happy birthday. Today is actually his father, and it is his birthday for father. I know many of our watch parties joining us may also be able to produce little videos, but wanted to, I know we've discussed these many ways we can take up this call to action. And one we can take together right now is to not forget the political prisoners we have here in the United States and the really long prison sentence they are under for offering humanitarian aid, for providing ambulances and healthcare clinics. And I just am so moved by the work that he has done and the enormous sacrifice that he has made for that work. And so I want us all to honor him today, in this webinar to call for a right to resist, and if people want to come off mute altogether and wish him a happy birthday. Nita, do you want to lead us in a little happy birthday, maybe?
The funniest thing is that my son actually has Happy Birthday playing in the background on TV. Coincidentally, coincidentally, they're singing Happy Birthday.
Maybe he can lead us in a happy birthday.
Adam, you want to come sing Happy Birthday? No? Okay. Okay, I mean, we can start all together, I guess. Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
birthday.
Happy
birthday
birthday to you.
To
To you.
Hey, okay, stop.
Happy birthday.
Okay.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you all. I really wish he can see or hear this, honestly. But I'm sure he's feeling everyone's energy right now. I'm certain.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We will close out here. So if you are at a watch party, there may be other discussion for you in person. But for those of us who joined online, thank you so much for making time for this, and we will see you in the struggle.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.